All right, we take you now to Dubai, and that is where negotiators and ministers at the 2023 United Nations Climate Change Conference are discussing details around the Loss and Damage Fund, which was announced on the first day of COP28. Newzroom Afrika's Ziyanda Ngcobo following that particular gathering for us, and we find her at the Expo City in Dubai. Ziyanda, good morning to you. And let's perhaps try and look at the various themes that have come since then. There has been some lot of talk from Anglo Americans integrating something into their plan around the ESG. Am I correct here, or you will put us in the picture as to exactly what all of these acronyms stand for and what it is that the climate conference seeks to achieve here?
You're correct, Xoli. ESG is the environmental, social and governance plans that companies actually need to put in place to ensure that they're keeping up with all the, treaties that South Africa has ratified to. So, of course, we are a signatory to that 2015 Paris Agreement, and, companies such as Anglo American need to ensure that they integrate, such policies into their programs. I mean, they are, of course, a mining company. They deal with many commodities such as iron ore, for an example, platinum. So it's very critical that businesses here to also participate in such a summit to find out how agile their policies can move internally within their own organizations to ensure that South Africa as a whole is also moving towards those carbon emissions targets. In fact, let's bring in Anglo American's Africa and Australia Director, Mr. Themba Mkhwanazi, because you are responsible for the optimization of operations amongst the many things that you do. Just talk to us about your ESG plans and how over the years, since 2015 at least, you've integrated climate change policies internally within Anglo American.
No, thank you, Mapaloba. This is an area that we're very proud of in terms of what we've achieved as Anglo American. It is very much underpinned by our purpose, which is very much about reimagining mining to improve people's lives. And ESG for us is not just about the ESG requirements. What we've also done as well is we've actually built into it the UN Sustainable Development Goals as an element of that. So what you will tend to find is that in terms of our approach, not only are we focusing clearly on the E, and in particularly when you engage with investors, there's a lot of focus on the E in decarbonization, but the S, is just as important. And of course, the governance comes without saying. And in terms of ESG, the way in which we operationalize, how we implement, ESG is through what we call our sustainable mine plan. And there are three elements to it. And the outcomes of those three elements is that we want to be known as the corporate partner of choice. We want thriving communities, and we want to achieve, a reduction in terms of the impact on the environment, such that we have a healthy environment. And that's in essence, the elements that form our sustainable mine plan. Linked to that, though, is the technology and the advancement in technical development, because you need technology to work hand in hand with the elements around, obviously, ESG, social governance and environment.
And I think the S, which is the social part, is quite critical, because then we need to talk about making sure that while you transition, that you protect people's jobs and livelihoods. And I think you're not insulated from the politics, and part of the politics here at COP28 is how continents like Africa, which is one of your portfolios, contribute the least, but are put under a lot of pressure to immediately phase out fossil fuels. In fact, that's been put in the first draft of that COP28 agreement. How are you going to balance that? Because we need that investment. We don't have money.
Okay, first of all, it's about, and this is what we're advocating for, and this has been my key message at COP here, is that when we think about the transition to a low carbon future. We got to think about it in terms of the three global trends. The one, obviously, is the decarbonization. And of course, that's the decarbonization of energy, electricity, transportation systems, and mobility. And that obviously gets a lot of the airtime because people talk about copper, battery metals,
yes,
platinum group metals, and all that. But there's a second trend that we also need to be, aware of, and that is a pull for higher living standards by the developing world, what I term, the global south, because people want a better living of standard in terms of the houses they live in, what they have in terms of the cars, the experience that they have. And that has to be underpinned by infrastructure. So, for example, steel, iron ore, coal, and also diamonds also still continue to play a feature. And then the third element is that very developing world is going to grow by about 2 billion people,
yes,
up to 2050. So they need to be fed. So access to arable land, access to organic fertilizers is quite key. And we are quite pleased as Anglo-American that we're actually developing a flagship project which provides an organic fertilizer. So you've got to think about it in that context, and not just the narrow decarbonization context. That's the first thing that you need to do. Then the second element then is that you got to think about it in the context of saying we have to take people along with us. Now for us, mining, how we fund mining going forward has to be in harmony and done in such a way that it is in harmony with societal and environmental needs. Thirdly, it has to take the recognition that we have to take everybody along with us, and we need to create enduring value for all the stakeholders, not just the shareholders per se, or the investors who are directly in the mining business.
Tripling nuclear by 2050, is that something that Anglo-American is looking at as a possible way, as you're saying, taking people along? Because that's been the big talk here at COP28 so far.
So for us, we look at it from a metals and a minerals perspective, and we take the cue from the fact that a decarbonized world is 6 times more metals and minerals intensive. What do I mean by that? Today, the per capita usage of copper is about 26 kilograms a ton. Per person, sorry. There's going to be a requirement of about 260 kilograms per person. So that's a significant step up. Similarly, when you look at steel, currently it's about 4 tons per person. There's going to be a requirement of about 15. So you can see that there's a significant demand. So the question has to then be, where is this going to come from? Because the current capacity of mines cannot sustain that. And of course, that's the challenge, but that's also the opportunity in terms of the contribution that mining has to greening the world.
All right, a lot of plans being put in place there, Koli, by Anglo-American, one of the many businesses that are having to be agile, having to be innovative in terms of how they do business going forward. Of course, bringing in the much larger context there, that's Themba Mkhwanazi. He's the Anglo-American's Africa and Australia Director, Koli.
Newzroom Afrika's senior reporter there, Ziyanda Ngcobo, live for us in Dubai.